But, I'm a great believer that sometimes giving texture as well through routines that other people aren't necessarily doing. Lay people know that. Lay people know that. They know when they're seeing something that isn't necessarily the regular magician's fare. But there are moments where sometimes it's I was talking to someone recently about this. If you're somewhere at a gig and maybe you finished your set and someone says, "Oh, can you do one more for us?" Why not do something different? Why not do something that you wouldn't necessarily do? Someone said, "Oh, show me another trick," and it would be a perfect moment to go, "Do you know what? Let me show you something special. I don't normally share this, right?" And then you go into your presentation about hidden moves and secrets of the gamblers and stuff, and they feel that they're seeing something special. So why not?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. Today we've got another really great guest, someone who I've known for a little while and very interested to see what he has to say. But before we get into that, let's let you know about the concept of the podcast. So the idea is that our guests are going to be marooned on an island. As always, we're not going to really put them on an island. And they're allowed to take with them 8 tricks, 1 book and 1 non-magic item that they use for magic. Again, the particulars, their audience can be whoever they want. There could be no audience. The more poignant thing there is that it's the tricks that they couldn't live without. So if they had to go somewhere and they could only take X, Y, and Z, that's what they would take. So that's the idea. So today's guest is an awesome magician. In fact, he's a phenomenal magician. And when you order from Alakazam, he's usually the man in charge of your order. He's very much behind the scenes here at Alakazam, and that's why it's very exciting that he's going to be on today's podcast. He's a huge book lover, and his knowledge of magic, moves, creators, tricks, and just magic in general is absolutely mind-blowing. I'm really interested to see what he has to say and what he's going to take with him on his island. So today's guest is Andy Smith. Hello, Andy.
Hello, Jamie. How are we?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Thank you, mate. Yep.
So I'm really interested because you really do have a ridiculous knowledge of everything. Andy is the sort of person who, when you're in conversation, he'll just throw out a name and a page number from a book from centuries ago. And
it's not always the case.
It's quite often the case.
It's
quite often the case. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what you have to say. Especially in terms of the book one. That must have been the hardest thing out of all of this.
Okay.
So let's go to your island. What is trick number 1?
So 3 fly.
3 fly.
Yeah.
Any particular 3 fly?
No, not really. I got introduced to 3 fly via Gary Kurtz. I saw him on a video. His routine, Misty Like a Dream, is very good. The original 3 fly by Chris Kenner that appears in Out of Control. I like all of them. I don't think there's any one single one that I don't like, but the Gary Kurtz one was certainly the one that inspired it. And I've learned lots and lots of different variations over the years. But I guess now the routine that I perform is kind of an amalgamation of each of the different influences. So stuff by Curtis Cam, stuff by Chris Kenner, Gary Kurtz, Michael Vincent, people that I've looked at the routines and just thought, do you know what, I like that little bit there, I don't like that bit there. So kind of, you change things in and out. It's like doing an ambitious card routine, isn't it? You do the ambitious card, but you kind of take bits that suit you better and remove bits that don't, and then you end up with a routine. So
I'm going to be devil's advocate here. So I'm going to say that you're on the island,
yeah,
but you have to take a specific pre-fly. Which one are you going to take?
The Gary Kurtz one.
Gary Kurtz. And where would that be?
Unexplainable Wax.
Unexplainable Wax.
Yeah, or on his DVDs that he's released, streaming videos.
Okay. And is that like the first card trick that you learned?
Coin trick. Yeah. That would. Yeah, it is very much like that.
Okay, cool. So we're in straight away with quite a hard hitting trick, which is one that no one said yet.
Yeah.
in the whole podcast.
Well, there we go. Like to be different.
I know. Now that I've said that, I bet someone says one.
Yeah, I bet they do as well.
Away.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's go on to number 2.
So David Williamson's ring on rope routine. Absolutely love it. I remember seeing him do the do this on a video, probably one of the International Magic videos, and then it's since appeared on other videos. It appears on Ridiculous as well. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I don't think many people do a full ring on rope routine. Although saying that, this last couple of weeks, certainly I've seen people that have been buying like the TCC ring, and I think it comes with a rope as well, so that complete set. Now, whether they're buying that to do that particular routine or David Williamson's routine, I don't know. But the David Williamson routine is brilliant. It has so many great moments of magic in it. You see Williamson perform it. He performs it in obviously the only way that Williamson can. But there are just great moments of magic on it. There's a wonderful moment where you take the ring and you toss it back towards the rope, and it visually penetrates on, but it penetrates on as you're tossing the ring onto the rope. It's not that it penetrates through the rope in a kind of static motion. You actually take the ring, throw it, and it looks to penetrate onto the rope in midair, and it's just brilliant. And then you get this wonderful moment where you snip the rope with your fingers. There's another moment where the ends transpose with the middle. It's just brilliantly constructed. Ringing in the gimmick is excellent. Ringing out the gimmick is excellent. And all the bits of byplay in between. So yeah, if you've not checked it out, then the Ring on Rope routine by David Williamson is awesome.
Where did you say that was?
So I saw it on an international video, but you can. It's also done on Ridiculous. I think he performs it on there in the DVD set. Really bad of me. I don't know if it's in his book. I would assume it is because it's been a long-standing part of his repertoire. But it's definitely on one of those two sources.
And is it a routine like earlier on? You mentioned the like an ambitious card routine. Is it one that can be chopped and changed?
Yeah, it can be. Personally, I wouldn't. I would do the routine from start to finish with all the different phases because it's quite a short routine. Once you've got the rope out, that's been examined and the ring's in play. It's quite, it's got a good beat to it. It's got a good feel to it, pace wise. But you could do it. There's a couple of phases that Williamson gives as alternatives, which I don't do. But yeah, you could certainly chop and change it wherever you want. The hardest thing about the routine, because it's an extremely easy routine to get on with, the hardest part is actually sourcing a decent sized ring. But like I said, the TCC ones are pretty good for it. So
nice. So that was one thing that I should have probably said at the front of this. I think that Andy's choices are going to be really varied.
I hope so.
I think because you've got such a wide range of interest in magic, I can imagine that if you were to take these to a desert island, they would probably be one of the most varied or almost abstract collection of tricks to put together.
Yeah, well, I like to be different.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. But that brings us very swiftly to your third item.
So cups and balls, absolutely adore it.
I would never have put that on your list.
Absolutely adore the cups and balls for lots of different reasons. So I've been doing the cups and balls routine ever since I first read the Mark Wilson book, which was my second magic book. So it tells you how long. And actually, if I'm so inclined, I do that routine exactly as it's described in the book. Over the years, I've learned a couple of different versions, the Vernon one, the Amar one, for example, and a couple of ideas by people like John Mendoza and Michael Vincent, Paul Gertner, people that do cups and balls routines. So I think my routine as it is now is probably, again, an amalgamation of different people. Kind of starts off, I guess, like the MR routine, goes a little bit Vernon-esque and then ends up being closer to the Mark Wilson one. But I've explored lots of different ideas since I first started doing the cups and balls. And I've always maintained it's very cliche to say in the world of magic, you learn the cups and balls routine, it teaches you everything you should need to know about magic. I wouldn't necessarily agree, but it is one of those effects that when you get into it, you will certainly learn a lot from it. And it has a lot of magic happening. Obviously there's appearances, penetrations, there's transpositions, there's things growing, there's things disappearing, everything. So it will certainly teach you that, and it will teach you about audience management as well. I used to do the cups and balls as kind of a perform to an audience. When I perform it now, I tend to perform with the audience, i.e. I get them picking up cups, I get them lifting cups at the end when the final loads are revealed, I get them handling handling props. I get them handling, doing part of the magic in the routine. So now over the years, it's become, rather than me perform it as a kind of showpiece to the audience, they get more involved with sort of handling things and being part of it. If you don't do a cups and balls routine, I urge you to, because it's great. You'll get a lot of kicks out of performing it.
So, devil's advocate again. We're going on to our desert island.
Yeah.
You can only take one person's routine.
Yeah, the Vernon one.
You take the Vernon.
I'd take the Vernon one.
And where would that be learnt?
Di Vernon Book of Magic.
See, I told you, just off the top of his head.
Yeah, Michael Amar's Complete Cups and Balls book, if you can get it. Certainly the DVDs. The Vernon Revelations DVDs. You can learn it from there. So you will learn it, including the wand spin. If you want to, just a little tip here, right? If you want to learn the wand spin from that routine, then you've got Michael Amar's book, The Magic of Michael Amar. It's taught in there, as is the drummer spin, I think. But if you want to learn, the way that I learned it is I learnt it from the Cups and Balls book, tallied with Michael Amar's Cups and Balls videos, because it's not a hard move to learn. Once you get it, you'll know it forever. It's just the coordination of it. It's just the sequence of where the wand spins and the different finger positions, and then obviously applying that to the vanish. But yeah, the Vernon routine would certainly be the routine that I'd take with me.
So at the very beginning of that, I had made a sarcastic comment about Andy choosing that for his list. But the truth is, Andy's very well known amongst certainly our community and probably the wider community for your cups and balls.
I think I'm probably the only one that does at least a 3-cup routine in this area still, which is good.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, learn a cups and balls routine.
Learn a cups and balls routine. Good. So that brings us to your halfway point.
Ooh.
Halfway. What is your big halfway point crescendo?
I don't know. Dun, dun, dun. Quite a good one.
That's good. We need to pick that out and put that onto one of our sound buttons for future episodes. Yep. So what are you going for number 4? What's your big number 4?
So number 4 is the plot of Interchange. Okay, so Interchange being 2 sets of different cards, one put in pocket, both signed, one put in pocket, one held in the hand, and then they transpose with the ones in your pocket. All right. So again, there's lots of different versions that I've done over the years. I tend to perform the one that I came up with a few years back that I put on an academy, and I tend to that's my go-to one. Jack Carpenter has a really nice one. Michael Vincent has a really nice one. Larry Jennings. There are lots and lots of different people that have kind of inspired me. Like I said, I think if currently when I do Interchange, it is the one that I kind of developed a few years back. It's more closely associated with the Jack Carpenter one, which I think is called Multiplex Reset, and it has kind of influences by people like Paul Gordon. Paul Gordon's got a great version of the Interchange plot. Joe Sadowitz, of course, who had The More Things Change, which kind of sparked it all off. Our very own Alakazam released the I Change project that Peter released a number of years back. So they're all very heavily influenced with that, like that. But it is a plot that if you want to explore it more, there are people that have lots of different work on that. John Lovick, for example, has a really good version, which I kind of use.
See, all of these are just off the top. He's just rolling out all of the. He's a walking encyclopedia.
The John Lovick version, for example, because with Interchange, you can make it that the cards change places with the ones in your pocket, and then you can have them immediately do that again in some versions. Ambidextrous Travellers, for example, the Larry Jennings version is great because in that, the aces travel to your pockets and then they travel back again almost immediately. And you kind of tag that onto the Interchange plot, and you've got a really powerhouse card trick, or card routine. So John Lovick's version is really good because there's a nice little subtlety in that where you apparently remove cards from your pocket that they've named and then appear back in your pockets, as of course happens in I Change as well. So they transpose and in one of the 2 values are named and then that appears back in your pockets. So there are some great versions of it out there. Taken to an island, it would be the version that I do.
Is that, have you
if memory serves me, it's on my academy that I released.
Nice.
We have been talking about doing it as like a separate, or I certainly had the suggestion about doing it as a separate video download. So watch this space.
And what's the name of your version?
I can't remember what I called it.
That's a really unique name.
I can't remember what I called it.
So he knows everyone else's trick,
but
not his own.
Yeah, can't remember. And his interchange. There we go.
There
for
you
want
go.
of a better title.
Great. Good. So that takes us over the halfway point to number 5.
Yeah. Okay. So fourth dimensional telepathy, or into the fourth dimension, whatever name you want to give to it. So I first saw Bob Cassidy do fourth dimensional telepathy. It was on Mental Miracles, because up until that point I didn't own any of Bob Cassidy's books. But yeah, that was my first introduction to it. So for certainly the time that I learned to do it or started to do it, I did the version that's on Mental Miracles, which was one of many versions that Bob Cassidy had. It was different to the original version that was published in Practical Mental Magic, I think, by Theodore Ammon. So it was, it's the original ones in there. But the version that Bob Cassidy does, albeit that it's great, didn't really suit me after a time, and then I discovered a different method. That
was it a method thing or was it a stylistic
It was a method.
thing?
No, it was a method thing. I'll tell you for why. When I first started doing it, I was doing it a lot at a Magic Bar as part of my stand-up set, and sometimes I would forget to take some of the stuff out of my pocket that I had for close-up, and then when part of the method, without giving too much away, is that billets would end up being in your pocket, and then trying to then negate going into your pocket to then find those billets amongst other stuff that might have been in there that I've possibly forgot to remove just became a bit awkward and a bit cumbersome, and it broke the flow of the routine. So then I changed to, rather than it just being open billets, to using envelopes for the routine. So there was a method change there, which again, I won't go into method wise, but the change from just open billets to them business cards, which was another change because the billets were just plain billets, whereas business cards, so I can hand them out, right? Then involved the envelopes, so it became a bit more, a bit better, both method wise and presentationally.
And I guess no one can learn that version. If it's your own.
Well, I think that the version that I do isn't a great leap, all right? Or if I said envelopes to anybody listening to this and they understand fourth dimensional telepathy, the method behind it, then they'll know what envelopes I've then substituted. It wouldn't surprise me because I believe there's a version in the Art of Mentalism or Artful Mentalism, but it wouldn't surprise me if somewhere, because Bob Cassidy had lots of different methods for it, that version probably is there somewhere. In fact, I'm not sure. I'd have to rewatch because I haven't watched the video for ages. But he does another trick on there called Name and Place. And
is it just 2 billets?
2 billets. Yeah. Now I'm not sure whether that uses the same method as into fourth dimensional telepathy, or that's an envelope method, isn't it? Or is it? I can't.
No. No, it's just open billets.
Right. Okay. But like I said, it would be anybody listening to this that has been into magic even a short amount of time and knows that routine that I'm discussing will then go, oh yeah, well, I can understand how he substituted that.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to let you know about all the exciting things happening here at Alakazam Magic. We have brand new releases every single month and live streams every Tuesday, so there's so much content to dive into. We ship every single day. If you're in the UK and your order goes to over £40, we ship it to you for free. If you're international and your order amounts to over £70, we ship it for free, fully tracked. And if you live in the United States, we get it sent from our California branch, which means you have cheaper shipping, faster shipping, and no import duties. Can't get any better than that. Honestly, there's so much to discover here at Alakazam, including the monthly newsletter with all orders. We have our own live academy where the world's biggest names in magic teach the best tricks in the world. And it's live, so you can interact and ask any questions you like. We have so many exciting things happening here at Alakazam, so make sure you follow us on all social media, Facebook and Instagram, to find out the latest news. Cheers guys, and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So that takes us on to your 6th item.
Yeah. So no,
that was a strange response to.
So I don't as a general rule perform many dealer type effects.
Okay.
Right? Which you would think is strange. Being that I work from a magic shop, but I don't perform a lot of bought magic, commercially available effects. However, there is one effect that ever since I learnt it, I have performed continuously, and that is the Gurl. All right. I absolutely love it. All right.
I've seen you perform it as well.
Thank you.
Stand up, and it's amazing.
Yeah, so for a long time I used to do it close up, and then I was looking for something that I could do stand up that was possibly the ending to the show, and Peter suggested to me about doing the Gurl.
And it's Mike Rose, isn't it?
Yeah, so the Gurl is Mike Rose and Peter. Between the two of them, they developed the Gurl complete. So it is a whole rundown on the Gurl plot, the card at any number plot, and like I said, I learnt it in its original incarnation when it was first released, and performed it close up. Not all the time, not at every gig, but I performed it close up. And then it came along that I started doing more stand up, more parlour stuff, and it was suggested about doing that as a stage or stand up version. Okay, so suitable for parlour and stage. So Peter had this brilliant idea for the stage version, for the stand up version, which I started performing. He was very gracious to allow me to start performing it before the Gurl Complete was released. So I did, and in every single situation, it never fails to elicit a superb response. It never fails, right? And I think it's one of those effects. People, they kind of realise the impossibility of it maybe 30 seconds after it's happened, which I love, because we're not talking about surprise here. You do something like the cups and balls, you produce the big fruit, and everybody goes, "Oh my God," and then there sometimes is that afterthought of, "Well, hang on, how did that happen? How did the fruit get underneath the cups?" The same is true with the Gurl. People, I don't think people go, well, they do because they applaud. They applaud that moment where everything matches. But then all of a sudden, it's as if they realise, they don't have to do the mathematics or anything like that. They're the probability of it working. It's not about that. It's as if they kind of go, "Well, how did that happen?" And then another part of their brain goes, "I don't care because that's just brilliant." So yeah, it is an effect that I've performed for a long time and absolutely adore, especially the stand-up version.
It's one of those tricks as well. So Pete performed it to me last year at a convention.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is about it, but there's you watching it from a trailer.
Yeah.
But there's a really weird thing where you have it done to you in person.
Yeah.
And it feels more impossible for some weird reason.
Yeah.
It plays exactly the same as what you see on the trailer.
Yeah.
But there's a weird sense of, okay, I followed that. You didn't do anything and it still worked.
Yeah. And to my mind, I mean, we know that there are a myriad versions of card at any number, the Burglass effect, if you want to call it that. There, having performed this as much as I have, I can honestly say this is by far the cleanest, most user-friendly version of that plot that I've ever seen. And to say that you also get so much other bonus material with it, and the ideas and thinking behind it, shuffled deck versions, ones for stand-up, ones for close-up, ones where people select cards, ones where, I've posted before a gig, I've posted out the deck of cards to one person, prediction to another, and then at the venue when we've got there, done it as this, you've had these in your possession for the last 2 weeks, and then go into it from there. So there's so many great ideas. So if you want to look at that particular plot, card at any number, then check out the Gurl, because I guarantee you will absolutely love it.
I agree. And that we're approaching the end of your tricks already before we get to the two scary hard ones.
Oh God.
So let's go for number 7. What are you taking to your desert island in your 7th position?
So hanging coins, David Roth's hanging coins. I still do pretty much that very same routine most of the time. Sometimes I kind of deviate a little bit and I might throw in a handling of someone else, but yeah, hanging coins, the original David Roth version, which appeared in Expert Coin Magic. Well, it appeared in Coin Magic to start off with, and then Expert Coin Magic, and then on videotapes. And yeah, it's one of those effects. I think it has a bit of a stigma of maybe being a hard routine, and I'm sure there are harder routines out there than the one that David Roth does. The technique isn't necessarily the easiest, but it's still not what I would say too knuckle busting. And, it is one of those routines or effects that I think, we kind of gloss them by because I don't think people or magicians feel that lay people like them. But actually, you take 4 coins, you apparently make them invisible, hang them onto invisible hooks, and then you make them reappear again. It's so magical. It doesn't really matter what your approach is. You can, or how many coins you're using, or whether you do the invisible hook presentation, or whether you produce the coins all at once or one at a time. That's a choice that each performer has to make. But it's such a magical effect for people. Especially if you follow it up like you do free fly, for example. What better to produce the coins, do free fly, and then apparently hang them up on the invisible hooks again. Yeah. So it's just a wonderful, often not used routine, I think, or not used effect. And it's a shame because it's just, and it appeals to lots of different age groups as well. You do it for kids, they love it because coins are apparently vanishing on these invisible hooks. Do it for adults, right, they may not believe the invisible hook thing, you would hope, but the fact that they're vanishing with sleeves rolled up and then you immediately reproduce them afterwards or go into some of the other variations like change them into different coins or whatever, it's just magic at its very best. It's a very clear plot. Coins vanish, coins reappear.
I agree. Where is that one learnable?
Well, I believe the David Roth routine, Coin Magic, along with some other great routines of David Roth, and Expert Coin Magic, the big David Roth book. You can find it on videos. I'm not entirely sure what ones. The New York Coin Magic Symposium probably, because I think there are a couple other people on there that have their own variations. I think because the Coin Magic Symposium DVDs or videos, they did those as specific coin subjects. So coins across, spellbound, free fly, etc., etc., etc. So I'm sure you'll probably find one of those. But certainly the David Roth books.
And that brings us to your last trick. So what is the very last one that you would take to your island?
Invisible palm aces or open travellers.
Okay.
All right. Again, it's not a plot that people generally do. Depending on what side you're on, Marlowe or Jennings. It depends on, I guess, what version you do and who you believe invented it. Although the Marlowe version was inspired, I think, by someone called Bill Meisel. So just as an aside, but yeah, it depends on who you want to go with as to what name you give it. Invisible palm aces or open travellers. Again, it's a little bit like the hanging coins. It is a plot that it just looks so magical. It's just 4 cards. You put one down on the table, the other 3 vanish apparently, or they get absorbed into the palm of your hand, and then you can put them down with the other one. The vanishes look great when done well. The appearance of the card down on the table looks great when done well. And it is just that, well, there was one card there, and then there was just the other card just materialized. You watch Bill Malone do it. Bill Malone does it on I can't remember if it's On the Loose or Here We Go Again, but or even maybe the Marlowe DVDs that he did. But you watch him do it, and it's brilliant. It really is, and it's a really well constructed routine as well. Some of the variations of it are really well constructed. The version that I do is the version pretty much that Bill Malone does on those DVDs. You have to, once you find out which DVD it's on, it'll tell you which version it is. I would say probably the Marlowe one because he's a big Marlowe student. And if you want to look at any more of it, then Jennings has a section in Jennings 67, I believe it is, that is all on the invisible palm aces and some variations. And you'll find different versions of it, some gaffed as well. But I've performed the invisible palm aces or open travellers so many times, and it's one of those tricks that someone gave me a deck of cards and they were in a decent enough condition. That would be the trick that I would do and go into, because it just uses 4 cards pretty much. You use the deck for one of the final phases, but yeah, it's brilliant, and it conforms to that. It's a very simple effect. The cards are going from here to there, a bit like cards across. It's a very visual effect, has lots of byplay in it, lots of moments of comedy in it that you can capitalise on, lots of great moments of magic. Spectators can get involved with it, so it ticks a lot of boxes.
Is that other than the Grail, is that the only card trick that you've included?
Interchange the cards to pocket.
Interchange as well.
Yeah.
Nice. But again, they're out of all of the card plots that you'd pick, they're quite obscure.
Yeah.
I think that shows us how you pick your material. Like, you want to stand out, you want to do what other people aren't doing necessarily.
Yeah. There's nothing, you want to be different to other people. Don't get me wrong. I do Ambitious Card. I do Cards to Pocket. I do Cards Across, and all of the standard fare for magicians' repertoire. But I'm a great believer that sometimes giving texture as well through routines that other people aren't necessarily doing. Lay people know that. Lay people know that. They know when they're seeing something that isn't necessarily the regular magician's fare. Now it's very unlikely you're going to get same audiences that are going to see the Ambitious Card. It's never happened to me, touch wood. But there are moments where sometimes it's I was talking to someone recently about this. If you're somewhere at a gig and maybe you finished your set and someone says, "Oh, can you do one more for us?" Why not do something different? Why not do something that you wouldn't necessarily do? It's not always the chance that I'm going to get to do Open Travellers at a table, but sometimes there's that moment where someone says, "Oh, show us a trick." I don't take a close-up mat to the table, and you really need a close-up mat for it. Although you can do it on a tablecloth. But someone said, "Oh, show me another trick," and it would be a perfect moment to go, "Do you know what? Let me show you something special. I don't normally share this, right?" And then you go into your presentation about hidden moves and secrets of the gamblers and stuff, and they feel that they're seeing something special. So why not?
So that takes us on to the next item, and the reason that I mentioned about you choosing your material and stuff is because the vast majority of what you've spoken to us about has been from books.
Yeah.
So we can see your influences from books, which then means that this choice would have been potentially difficult, but potentially not difficult at the same time, since Harry knew exactly what you were going to do straight away. So what book did you go for?
So I went for Strong Magic by Darwin Ortiz.
Okay. Talk to us about why.
Oh, okay. I could say so much about this book. So look, the thing is, right, is that there are a lot of books that I could have chosen from, okay? But when it comes to material, there's such a glut of information in those books, right? You can just pick and choose and forever and ever, right? Because there's still books on my shelf that maybe I've read it, but there's tricks in there that I've never gone back to or that I didn't read the first time, right? So there's still those opportunities that I'm going to discover new stuff, and that the same is true of every book, I guess, right? The thing is about Strong Magic is that it's because there's no material in it. It's forcing you to. It's very easy as performers, if you want to be different, or you want to be, I don't know, maybe on TV or something like that. You go and look for material first, right? Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you don't need to do that, because there are other books, the theory books, that provide you all the information that you need to make your current material stronger, and do all the things that possibly you think you need to do by changing your material that you might not need to do because you're reading those books. So like Maximum Entertainment, for example, you read Maximum Entertainment. I would read that more than, I'd read that continuously and go back to it, because your tastes change, your approach changes, and that's why Strong Magic continues to be my favourite book, is because I read it every year, and every year I find something different. And the reason I do that and I find something different is because over the course of the year, my approach material-wise and performance-wise has altered slightly. So now Strong Magic speaks to me in a different way, It speaks to me in a different way each time. So what might not have been relevant one year becomes relevant the next, and then same is true the year after, and the year after. That's why I constantly go back to it, because the information in there isn't going to necessarily change, but the way it applies to me after that year would have done. And that's why it's my favourite book, is because it constantly inspires my thinking with what I've learned over the course of that year. That kind of makes sense.
No, I think it makes perfect sense.
Right. Okay. That's good.
I think of not comparing it to a film, but sometimes I find that in like really classic films, like years after you go back and you notice something, like you've watched it quite literally, I don't know, 20 times, and then you go back the 21st time and there's something that you just haven't noticed, or it changes your perspective on the narrative before it.
And I totally get that. I found that recently, or I'd say recently, this last couple of years, the first time I saw Derek DeGaudio's In and of Itself, right? So I watched it the first time, and it totally moved me, right? I've watched it 6 or 7 times since that time. I'm not going to see anything new in the performance from a performance point of view, because it's like watching the same, like you said, the same show each time. But what you're getting out of it is going to be changing. So when I started doing more sort of stand-up stuff and thinking about, rather than it just being a collection of tricks, what if I was to do a show? That then started speaking to me in a different way. And that's the same with strong magic. It's the same with designing miracles. I am a big Darwin Ortiz fan, so that's going to be one of the reasons why I'm influenced as well. But going back to them each year gives me a different perspective. I shared recently on one of my social media, I think it was on Facebook, maybe Instagram. In the front of my book, it says to Andrew, the only magic worth doing is strong magic, right? And that stuck. That stuck. I thought I was the only person that he'd written that in my book, and then I found out that it was in the copy of other people. When he passed away, there was all these people that were posting up saying, "Oh, remember, Dave, the only magic worth doing is strong magic." But it just goes to show you that core belief should be at the forefront of every magician's mind.
Also shows you that dual reality works in the real world.
Yeah. But it does show you that one concept should be in everybody, at the forefront of everybody's mind. Okay, there are tricks that you could kind of say are maybe trivial tricks. Like I've got a silicone ear, right? That I brought an Alan Wong one, right? And I produced that. All right, it's a gag, right? So the magic element is kind of done away with, because then people realise what it is and then start laughing, right? That's fine. I can do with those sort of things. But any magic trick really shouldn't be trivialized, because we are I can't remember who said, but I read recently once about magic being trivialized, where actually magic is quite a serious I think it was in Derren Brown's book actually. He makes this point that it's actually quite a serious thing that we're doing, right? And he says about solemnity, you can have a light-hearted presentation for something, but the core effect still be serious. And I think that's the same with magic. Sometimes magic can be dismissed by us, some magic, and we kind of we do it, and then we don't perform it in whatever way and show to our audience that we're taking it seriously. Whereas any magic worth doing, strong magic, and I think that's the underlying thing, worth doing. So then that becomes choosing your material, looking for your books, looking for your DVDs, choosing that material, not just necessarily choosing it because you think, oh, that's a great effect, or choosing it because it has possibly the wow factor, but choosing it because it's right, and choosing it because it's right for you, and it produces what you want it to produce, which is the strong magic, for everything more than just necessarily the effect as seen. But yeah, that's my reasoning why. I just every year it inspires me from what I've learned over that year.
Amazing, good choice. But that does bring us on to the, I want to call this like the wild card of the podcast, and that is the non-magic item that you use for magic.
So I started doing more stand-up magic this last sort of 2.5 months, and
normally he just does it all sitting down.
Yeah. Stand-up magic, doing more parlour performances, not necessarily stage, but parlour, larger groups, yeah. So I got myself kitted out with these wonderful larger scale props. I made Peter laugh because one day I turned up with an easel, and he said to me, "Why have you got an easel?" I was like, "Well, I'll put a flip chart or a whiteboard or something on it," because I wanted to get more into sort of mentalism, right? So that was, my immediate thing was, I watched a wonderful lecture by Drew Backenstos. And he with very little in the way of props filled a stage, right? Or seemingly filmed a stage. And I've heard other magicians do this before. Mark James has some wonderful stuff on this, right? About filling the stage. So I thought, I'll buy an easel. I can put the thing on it. I'll get myself a fold up table. And then I got some other bits and pieces. And it was like, right, okay, wonderful, right? It wasn't actually a lot of props. And it did what I wanted to do. It could fill an area. So I kind of felt, this is good. It's achieved what I wanted it to achieve. I had some metal cases that were, like makeup cases, those sort of things that magicians tend to use, right? So all my props, like book tests and that, could go in there. Brilliant. And then I started to, I think it was like my second gig. So my first gig, being booked to do, I'd been booked to do stand up before, before, but it was kind of like an afterthought for the people that had booked me. They were like, oh, would you mind doing something like this? So I kind of made do with what I had then. Whereas my first proper stand-up where someone had said, we want to book you for a stand-up spot, I was like, this is great. I went and did it, right? And it was in this lovely country house just outside Canterbury. It's like, it's brilliant. I rocked up, opened the boot of my car, and then I looked and I had like, because I was doing close-up as well, I had my close-up case, I had my metal case that had my props in it, I had an easel, I had a table, 2 tables, and I had like maybe a handful of other things, and I'm thinking, oh, I've got to get these into that house, right? So now I've got to get them into the house, I've got to set up, so that's going to be 2 or 3 trips, because it was quite heavy, you know, the easels look like, but they're actually quite cumbersome and heavy. I've got to go and do that, right? It looked like it was going to rain. I'm thinking, this isn't good thinking on my part, right? And then, but I kind of went with it and just did it, and then luckily someone helped me out with my props afterwards, right? It's fine. And then I was in the range? No, B&M. It was one of them. Right? I think it was B&M.
Which is like a discount store in the UK.
A discount store, right? And they did like parcel trolleys, you know, the foldable ones. And I was like, just get myself one of them, right? Get one of them. I think it came with some bungees, right? And then I don't know, you know, stupidly, why didn't I think this before, right? I don't have to do it in like 2-3 trips, especially if it's raining. I could just do it in one, right? That's just so obvious, and yet I didn't think to do that. So I think they were about £20-25 when I bought one, and that was it, right? It was just such a small point. And then thinking back to it, going back to Drew Backenstoss's lecture, I think he had one, or he had like a luggage case that everything just went in there. I was like, why did I think I could cope carrying the stuff in when actually a professional magician that's done this hundreds of times, who's got the same amount of stuff as me, just bought one of them, right? That's just so obvious. So yeah, I got one of them. And then I was working this Christmas with another magician, and when he opened the back of the car, he had one in the back of his car, and I was like, oh,
Great.
And he was like, yep. And I explained it to him, and he was like, yeah. He said, there's no way I'm looking, you know, why work like really hard doing that stuff when you can just put it on there. So yeah, so if you get into stand up, right, one thing you should have with you is one of those carry crates. I think you get them in all different shapes and sizes, foldable and, you know, and stuff. So yeah, get one of them.
And I think the amount of times I've been in like a B&M or a Wilko's, even though it's gone now, and those shops are just the best. Quite honestly, I could spend hours picking up all of these different things that just make life so much easier.
So there's a very quick aside. In Drew Backenstoss's lecture,
which I highly recommend.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's amazing.
And so is his book as well. It's just, amazing stuff.
Probably one of my top 10 books and lectures ever.
Yeah, well, I'm with you on that one.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about in there. They're like little foldable. They're like you put like dirty laundry in them. They're only little square cube things. They fold down, and you get another bit of cardboard that's in the bottom that's covered with fabric. Then you put that in the bottom, and it just keeps them rigid, right? So just a couple of those. He was talking about those. So I got it cost me, I think, for 2 in B&M was like £3, and they're great because they're packed flat. They go in one of the metal cases. They can expand out. I quite often use it. I have one on my table and one underneath. So the one on the table has props in it, and the one underneath acts like a bin. So if I'm doing 4th dimensional telepathy, for example, I can just take the envelopes or tear them up, chuck them straight in there. They're not on the floor. Potentially, if it's someone's floor at a house, or if you are on a stage, you're not going to slip on them. And by having one on top, sometimes what I do is, if I don't use the one on the bottom as a bin, I keep that in my case. I take the thing that holds it open out, and I wedge that in the one I'm using on top of the table, and then that gives me 2 compartments. So one becomes maybe a ditching part, and one becomes my take props from part. So they're great. And you're right. You go into any of these stores. Wilko used to be great.
Wilko was the best. I'm gutted that it's gone.
Yeah. I remember you had a thing with a pad that you used to use, the pad from Wilko. So all of these places, you know, they are great. It's just Hobbycraft. It's just going in.
That's the higher end of discount stores, though. That's quite
expensive.
pricey.
Yeah, that can be quite expensive. But all these places, they yield so much good stuff, especially if you're good at arts and crafts, which I know you are. And it's just brilliant source of material.
And if you're international, those little boxes are available in IKEAs, and I think IKEAs are pretty much everywhere nowadays.
Yeah, you would definitely find them.
Mm-hmm. Or just go and like check out Drew Backenstoss's stuff.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You on commission?
I'm a bit. I'm just a big fan of Drew Backus. I think he's wonderful.
Yeah, and with good regard as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But I think we're all big fans of you now as well, which is good.
That's good.
Which is good because
fans.
you've had some really good choices.
Cool.
And what I'm loving about this is I'm discovering or maybe rediscovering things.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you mentioned your Open Travellers.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Like it makes me want to go back and learn another Open Travellers because it's a great plot.
Let's face it. There's so much information out there.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to go and look for it, really.
Well, they can hear it all here on the new podcast.
Yep.
Amazing. So thank you very much
You're
for
very
letting
welcome.
us know what your 8 tricks, 1 book and 1 thing is.
You're very welcome.
Amazon is about to sell out of Wheelie.
Yeah, I hope so.
Wheelie
Because
cases.
I'm on commission.
Yeah, here's the affiliate link
Yeah.
for Andy.
Yep.
If people want to find out more about you, Andy, where are they going to go to?
Well, obviously, I'm reachable in the shop. I can be reached sales@alakazam.co.uk if you want to drop me an email. I'm always on the phone, so you can reach me on the phone. Quite often it's I'm not at conventions, but yeah, every now and then my little face pops up at conventions, so you'll see me there. But yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. So
what is your Instagram and Facebook?
Kent Magician on Instagram and Kent Magician on Facebook as well. So if you ever want any magic related questions or any questions in general, really, it's a bit of an anorak when it comes to those sort of things, but any magic questions, then yeah, always feel free to reach out and ask.
Amazing. And thank you all for listening, and we'll be back again soon with another episode of Desert Island Tricks.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.